was more that I didn't endure, quite frankly, the depth of the pain that my wife did, because the level of emotional connectedness simply was not the same. You know, I remember when our second son, Matthew, was born. You know, I had the connectedness, obviously, with our eldest son, Brandon, and it took a while after he was born, healthy, happy, and of course, you know, you love both sons, in our case, both those children, but over time, you make that connection, and then basically, you love every child. Was it 25 hours a day, 8 days a week, 32 days a year type of thing, right? And so if you go in reverse, this precious son, the third son, Brady, she was in her second trimester. So there was that much more level of disconnectedness, so to speak. So my role, I felt, was more to support her during this pain that she was enduring. And as she eloquently described, it's a very, very deep pain. And what exacerbates that pain is the fact that you really suffer in silence. Because there's so many, many well-meaning friends, well-meaning relatives who love Naomi dearly, care for her dearly, simply did not know how to comfort her. They didn't know what to do, what to say. Some said too much, some said too little, and quite frankly, through no fault of their own.
And so as I said, that was in 2002, December. And then in 2005, of course, we went through a lot of testing. The doctors, by the way, I think I went through every possible test you can think of. And it turned out that they suspected that there had been a blood clot in the placenta umbilical cord, somewhere in there. And that's what it caused. They think that's what caused his death. And so when I was emotionally ready to have another child, we, of course, consulted. This time we had a perinatologist involved, because I've never had any issues with my pregnancies with my two boys. So, I didn't think anything of it until this happened. So this time we had a whole team of doctors, really, really competent doctors, working with us, and found out I was pregnant, very excited. And of course, this time I was told, okay, as soon as you find out you're pregnant, you're going to be giving yourself, Lovenox shots, blood thinners, twice a day. And so I had to give myself 2 shots every day, and I'm like, okay, that's fine, 2 needles. I was like, I can live through that for a baby, whatever it is. So, the ideal diet, everything was, mapped out, carefully done, and amazing doctors. And our doctor said, okay, I would see, the schedule was such where I would see my OBGYN, and then 2 weeks later I would see the perinatologist. And then, so I would see a doctor every 2 weeks. And this time the pregnancy went extremely well. They were doing a lot of blood tests as we went along, just to check my blood count because of the blood thinners. My diet, very careful diet and strict diet and adequate exercise and everything. And I remember I got through the first trimester. We're like, yay, we made it through. This is going to be great. Got into the second trimester. Things are going really well. They did all these other tests for us, working through that whole process. And I was feeling great. And then once again, I just had this, I think I'd hosted a party here for some friends. And I had this sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach that something was awry. And I just kind of shook that feeling off, going, oh, no, I'm just imagining things, I'm fine. And then I kept asking Antonio, do I look okay? Do I look kind of weird? Does my belly look different? He goes, no, you look fine. I said, I feel tired. Something doesn't feel right. And then had an appointment the next day. So he was like, no worries. We're going to be going to the doctor's office. We have a sonogram coming up as well. So everything was fine. We go in. And sure enough, getting the sonographer, of course, was doing the sonogram. This time around with my second pregnancy, they pretty much did a sonogram every month, so sometimes every 2 weeks. And so checking on the baby, and the sonographer was just very still. And this time Antonio was with me. And she was very still. I was like, is everything okay? She goes, have you been feeling okay? I said, I haven't felt that great, but I guess I'm okay. She goes, when was the last time you felt the baby move around? I said, I thought I felt the baby move yesterday, but I'm not sure. Maybe I was imagining it, but I could feel. She goes, I'm so sorry, but baby's gone. And at that point, I still can remember that moment. I just thought that was the end of my life. I literally did. Because the first words out of my mouth were, not again. Not again. Lord, not again. I can't do this again. I'm not strong enough to do this again. And Tony was just holding my hand, and we were just crying. And the sonographer went off to get the doctor, my perinatologist, and I heard her come in. She stood outside and she was crying. And then she walked in and she just hugged me, and we just embraced each other for a very long time. She had been through this experience before. And herself.
Personally.
And so she completely understood. And we just, she goes, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. And I still have the image of our baby, just the way she was, just completely dead, not moving. And again, we had to go through that whole process of getting her out and dealing with having to bury her. And it was heartbreaking because I love my boys, but I was also having a girl this time, and it just completely and totally devastated me. And I think I really went into my own world at that point, because I really had no idea what to do. I really had no idea what to do. I came home once again. My friends were home and had already come home and were right here with us and walking us through this devastation again. Our church was very involved as well. So this time around, I just couldn't believe that literally within a 2.5, 3 year span that we were experiencing our second loss. It was just devastating, absolutely heartbreaking. I think this time around I was upset with some people because they'll be like, you should not get pregnant anymore if you don't want this to happen to you. I'm like, who are you to tell me that? How do you know that? Or it's like, oh, maybe, what did you do? What did you do? You must have done something wrong. It's like, no, I didn't do anything wrong. I mean, everything was done according to plan. Everything was planned out perfectly. It was completely out of our control. It was just meant to be. That's what happened. And never really found out. Once again, we went through a whole lot of tests to figure out what was going on or what had happened. Couldn't quite figure out what had gone wrong. And everything revealed that she was just a perfectly healthy baby girl. And so we went through, once again, the process of, this time we knew what to do.
Sadly.
Unfortunately, we still we had the funeral home, we had the cemetery. I mean, we knew who to go to, when, where, what, and it was like almost rote, And we just went through that whole process, and we had her interred as well. Cremated and interred. And some around, I remember as a musician, I've been just so blessed to work with some amazing, amazing musicians. There was this one Christian artist had been working with us in church, and he is from New York, and he came over and he spent some time with me, and we're sitting on the couch here in our family room and talking, and he said to me, he goes, Naomi, just remember that God is really going to use you through this. This happened to you twice, not just once. And you are given how creative you are, how musical you are. There's a lot of music that's going to be pouring out of you, because that's the way you're going to be grieving through this whole process. So be ready for it. Prepare your mind and your heart for that, because be ready. always have a writing pad and a pen with you, no matter where you go, and always be around a piano. You know, you never know when that music is going to come out. And he was right, because after a few weeks, I think that's how I really grieved this time around. I had never, I'd always composed music since I was 14. I've been writing music, but for the piano or for the orchestra. I had never written lyrics before, and it just started happening, and I just started writing song after song. I was writing a lot of poetry, and it was just coming out of me, and I would have like this 10-minute span during which time, and it'll be usually in the middle of the night, like 1 or 2 in the morning, I'll just wake up and I have this song in my head, and I had to come running down to the piano, start playing it, and write all the lyrics down. And the next morning, I would not necessarily remember everything, but I'd remember the music, of course, and the lyrics were written down, and start to work on that. And that was a great way for me to cope with my loss, because I had that to sort of help me just, I guess, deal with that pain.
It turned out to be very therapeutic, actually.
Yeah, very, very therapeutic. I guess those are the words that I was looking for. And once again, I just continued to reach out as much as I possibly could, because it helped me, you know, reaching out to help somebody else in turn actually turns around, it helps you. I mean, I felt so much better that I was helping people, and in the process I was actually helping myself, because I felt better talking about my experience. And they don't mean to make callous remarks about stillbirth, but they do. And so many well-intentioned people just would make this really mean comments. I remember people that were getting pregnant and would always whisper to some of my friends, "We don't want Naomi to know that we're pregnant. We don't want her to be around us. We don't want her to..." I was like, wow, what am I, this colored woman? You know, once again, that whole thing kept coming back. I was like, what have I done wrong here? You know, I haven't done anything wrong. At the same time, I met so many people that in their 60s and 70s, you know, when they heard my music and heard my story, would come up to me in private and hold my hand. They would weep, literally weep, and let me know that they had actually been through that experience. However, they were not allowed to talk about it. They said, you know, we're not allowed to talk about these things. We have to sweep it under the rug and pretend it never happened. Not allowed to talk about it to anybody. It's not a good thing to talk about it. And I said, wow, you know what? If you actually talk about it, it'll make you feel so much better. Because you could see that they were carrying that pain with them. And that other mom who had shared that statement with me about, you know, how you learn to live with the pain. You never get over the pain, but you learn to live with it each day. That is so very true. Because a lot of these ladies had learned to live with that excruciating pain, and they were not even allowed to talk about it or share their stories with anyone. So once again, I was really determined to kind of not let the world know, but let my world know, if you will, that this was not something that I was not going to talk about. I was going to talk about this because this is very real. It's a real pain. I lost my child, I lost my children, I lost my son and my daughter, you know. So please don't tell me not to talk about it. I'm not just going to bring it up, but if someone brings it up, yes, I would share my story in a heartbeat. And I know that a lot of people don't agree with me, but that's okay, because they haven't been through that and they can't understand it. But I want other moms that have been through this horrific experience to know that there's hope, that yes, you can get through this. You know, grab onto your faith and find those handful of friends that will be there for you no matter what, without judging you, without condemning you, but just be there for you and family. And the important thing is for just for families to come together and to talk about it a little bit, so that everyone's aware of it and everyone's aware of all these feelings that the mom goes through, and also the dad. I mean, I haven't talked about that a whole lot, but you do. I mean, as a family, you go through just a lot. It's a big change in your lives, and your life really does change. I am who I am today in many ways because of what I've been through. I'm not the same person I was before 2002. I'm a different person.
Person with the most integrity that I know, and a tremendous amount of strength, as you can readily see. It's just incredible what she's been through and how she's coped with it. I mean, the pain is real. Unfortunately, in many cases, in our case as well, you suffer in silence. So thankfully, we've got family, friends, one another, but most importantly, God above. And a couple of important notes, I think, from my standpoint, as I think through what we've experienced, is that the pain is real, and the grieving and the coping, obviously, is naturally real and has to be worked through. But it doesn't have to necessarily define you as a human being, as a woman in her case, as a dad in my case, as a couple. And that's really where my wife has inspired me, just to see how she's not just coped with it, but she's gone on to make, in her case, God's blessed her with many, different talents, and she hasn't just kept them hidden. She hasn't allowed this very, very sad event, not just once but twice in her life, in our lives, not only not to define her, but to, and she could use it as an excuse, and many people would readily understand that. Just crawl into a hole, so to speak, and be a victim. And she's chosen not to do that. And she's drawn upon all those resources that we mentioned, God, family, friends, and so forth. It's been remarkable.